Thanks. Thank you. Now think about this for a second. You bought a ticket to see Steve Forbes. Only Bob McCune and Tom Fitton can do that bait and switch. You go from America's most famous capitalist to a convict populist nationalist. I also have to say, I've been doing this long enough. I remember when Tom Fitton was a 165-pound weakling. No, so I was at Mar-a-Lago today, and Bobby Kennedy was there. And I figured out how we can make some real money. Kind of, because the new part of the MAGA wing is, some Democrats are coming over, like Tulsi and David Sachs and Elon and Bobby. So we're going to have really a flex contest between Bobby Kennedy and Tom Fitton, right? I think my money's on Fitton. Unbelievable. I want to thank you, and I want to really thank CNP for inviting me here tonight. We are at a unique moment in history, and it's very important that we have your total 100% commitment on this project, each of you individually in your groups. And that's when Bob asked me to talk. I said, man, this is amazing, because you're the exact group that can make this happen. If you remember, they had a movie, Steven Spielberg made this movie about Lincoln, right? I don't know, 10 years ago. Was it Day-Lewis played Lincoln? There's a scene in there where they're talking about the Emancipation Proclamation. He's in a room. Remember, the team of rivals, and these are all some of the best lawyers in the country, Seward, Stanton. And Lincoln's sitting there saying, hey, the Emancipation Proclamation is essentially, it is an executive order, right? Just like the travel ban, which several of you in this audience worked on with us, right? Just like all the executive orders President Trump had done in the first term to kind of sort things out. Remember, we had all those executive orders in the first 100 days that Biden took off as soon as he got in office. Remember the 80, and this is what, we had the invasion of the, 11 to 15 million illegal alien invaders? All executive order. And he's sitting there and he's talking, these guys said, look, I did that as a military necessity. And he's getting some criticism. He says, Bates, when he was Attorney General, we weren't that sure about its legality. That's why we can only do as a military necessity, free the slaves in areas then in revolt, then in rebellion. And he said the punchline was, but it gave the country 2 years to weigh and measure it, to think it over, to turn it over. He put it back to the American people. And he said, they returned us with essentially a landslide. And particularly the Army that came in. Remember the Army voted after Atlanta, after the fall of Atlanta? He said the country rendered a verdict that the war just was not for union, but was to purge the original sin of our country of slavery. And that's why I need these amendments to the Constitution. So let's go back in time here. 20th of January of 2021. When President Trump leaves Andrews, not a lot of people there. Some, but not a lot. I remember we had the show and they were playing the Frank Sinatra song, My Way, when Air Force One's taking off. He's going down to Mar-a-Lago. Boris Epstein calls into the show. His approval ratings, I think, were in the low 30s, maybe in the high 20s, an avalanche against him. The nation had 4 years to weigh and measure this, right? And 22 midterm gave us the House, right? Took it back from Pelosi. And then, in the onslaught that they chose, remember, besides abortion, their number one issue was democracy, how they define democracy. That was their issue. And the country rendered a verdict on the 5th of November. And that verdict is that their form of democracy is not acceptable to the American people. Look at what happened in 4 years. Not just what they've done. Look at what happened to President Trump. Look at what they put him through. 92 indictments, destroy his business, get him up on a rape charge or, some made-up charge in New York City. Over and over and over again, using lawfare, trying to bankrupt him. When I'm in Danbury, you've got men there that are some of the holiest men I've ever met. You know what their crime is? Praying the rosary on their knees in front of a butcher factory. 3, 4, 5 years in a federal prison. And let me tell you about a federal prison, not a camp. A federal prison is a dangerous, drug-infested place. And these men are there with no money. And hey, at Danbury's women's prison, there are 3 women there in their 70s that just got sent there. We have to understand what the people that ran this country, what they represented. And what they represented is not the founding doctrines, not the underlying values of the Judeo-Christian West. You more than any know the righteousness of our cause. With Trump, they did everything, including working up this thing that he's the new Caesar, a tyrant. Robert Kagan is the executive editor, he was till a couple of days ago, till he quit the Washington Post because they wouldn't endorse Kamala Harris. And he's Victoria Nuland's husband, Victoria Nuland of the color revolutions that has the West so deep into the Ukraine and trying to do color revolutions here in the United States. Kagan, one of the public intellectuals, the intelligentsia, in the January 1st edition of the Washington Post, writes a 5,000-word essay on Caesarism and Trump's the new Caesar. Not only you fascists, not only you Nazis, not only the deplorables now become garbage, but our leaders are dictators and autocrats, and teeing it up so that young men who don't know any better will become either a Brutus or a Lee Harvey Oswald. They drove what led to the attempted assassination on President Trump. And they must be held, and they will be held accountable. This election, David Brooks just wrote a 12,000-word essay in The Atlantic. And I know a lot of you guys do not subscribe to The Atlantic. But this one you should read because he nails it. And David Brooks is the, kind of a intellectual of the more traditional conservative, more traditional Republican, kind of a never-Trump wing of the party, right? But he writes that this election came down to the credentialed class, right, versus populism, versus the populist. That you have, all these people that went to college, all these people that work in the law firms, the accounting firms, the investment banks, the commercial banks, the symbolic workers that move, things around on a computer, data around a computer, versus hardworking, working class and middle class Americans. And we won a landslide, right? We won a landslide. But think of the composition of that landslide. You guys, I know many of you in this audience for many years. And I've been preaching the gospel of populist nationalism now for 15, 20 years. And the financial crisis that took place, in 2008, drove that. With every financial crisis you have, you're going to have a populist reaction, as sure as the turning of the earth. That's what this is, because we have not solved the underlying issues of the 2008 financial crisis. We have not. We have kicked the can down the road. And in fact, when President Trump actually takes power on the afternoon of the 20th, think about it for a second. We have now $37 trillion in debt, but it's not just not the face amount of the debt. We're adding $1 trillion every 100 days. We have the interest expense now is over $1 trillion, and the way the Biden administration has financed this, remember, 1/3 of that debt has to be refinanced about every year. We're refinancing it short term. They didn't finance it like we normally do in 10s and 30-year bonds. We did it short term, like places like Argentina, because they tried to keep rates down. What President Trump has to do and his team, whether it's Howard Lutnick or Scott Bessent or Larry Kudlow or Peter Navarro, that team has to very quickly come up with a financing plan. This is not sustainable. The BRICS nations tell us not sustainable. The purchasing power of the dollar has dropped 25% in Biden's regime. When I was in the prison, so the first couple of days I'm there, they come up and say, can you come to education, inmate Bannon. So I come over there, and they said, look, we have these courses that the prisoners can take. They get credit for the First Step Act, and they get out sooner. I said, I'll do that 5 days a week. Just tell me what you need. And they're sitting there, and they go, well, we really have a course we're not a teacher for. And I go, well, what's that? And they go, civics. I go, sure. I'm in, baby. Most of the prisoners that took it we had some older folks, but most of them were young African Americans or Hispanic males, right? We have tremendous, and all of them nonviolent drug dealers. These people have 10, 15, 20-year sentences. So think about your 25 years old, you got a wife and a couple of kids, and you get a 15-year sentence. You're not getting out of that prison until you're 40, unless President Trump's First Step Act kicks in, and you can get out a couple of years early. When you sit there and teach the structure of our government and go back to the Constitution, talk about the contractual relationship of that, and that 235 years later, it's still very operative as an operating plan for the country. And then you talk about how it's financed and the deficits, you go through, and the debt. They sit there and they look and they go, we're the criminals? I knew President Trump was going to win in about the first 2 weeks of Danbury, and here's why. One of the ways I would teach, the only thing you can get at Danbury is commissary. You can buy some gym clothes, and you can buy some instant coffee and things like that. And I held up the commissary sheet. And I said, how much is this commissary sheet? How much is it different from, I don't know, a random date, January of 2021? And they go, oh, Mr. Bannon, it's up 50% or more. And I went and I had the prison had printed out, the commissary guys had printed out a sheet from February 2021. And it's up about 40%, right? And they sat there and they go, this is what's killing our families. This is what's killing us. They rejected Kamala Harris and they love Trump, virtually all of them, because Trump has these manly virtues of leadership, right? Manly virtues of leadership that connects in a very primal level, which is a good thing. And they also say, look, Kamala Harris and these Democrats haven't done anything for us. The communities are terrible. They're crime-ridden, and this is coming from felons. I did make a point with him. I said, hey, look, President Trump's got 92 felony indictments, but he's guilty so far, according to Judge Mershon, of 34. How many guys here have 34 felonies? Nobody. That's the verdict the American people rendered. They rejected lawfare. And you don't need a PhD or don't need a Harvard MBA to understand that. That's why the coalition we have today is unique. What we had is a unique time in history. And I tell people, because we're going to talk in a second about the appointments and everything like that, Donald Trump took a bullet to the head and then 4 months later won in a landslide. He can pick anybody he wants to serve in his government. And all I want to hear is a cheery aye from the United States Senate. It's advice and consent. I can tell the rowdies are over there already. It's advice and consent. Give us your advice. We'll take your advice, but you're going to give us your consent. Tulsi Gabbard's going to be confirmed. Okay, Hegset's going to be confirmed. My good friend Matt Gaetz is going to be confirmed. And Bobby Kennedy's going to be confirmed. They are the four horsemen of the deep state apocalypse. This is why it's a revolutionary moment, and this is why I wanted to come back and talk to you. Think about it. Those four people, two are Democrats, right? And Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi, they believe in a lot of stuff we don't believe, right? And we believe in a lot of stuff those inmates, the black and Hispanic inmates in Danbury don't believe. But we have a unique time. I keep saying 2/3 of the country are with us. Right? 2/3 of the country are with us. We have the White House, we have the executive branch. We have the House and the Senate. Small majorities, but we have them. We have the courts. And if we do our work and stop Elizabeth Warren, there are 47 court openings right now. If we stop her in the Senate between now and the 20th, we will actually redo the district court level. And then these corrupt appellate courts. And guess what? We're going to get 2 or 3 pickups in the Supreme Court. We're going to go for a 9-0 court of conservatives. Look at the number. Right now, we have a unique time to grab control of the institutions. They go, oh, Trump's a disruptor, Bannon's crazy, they're anti-institution, they want to burn everything to the ground. No. These institutions are part of an administrative state that the founders and the revolutionary generation never conceived. Read the Federalist Papers. Read all the writings. Read the debates. Every time they were trying to cut the little bureaucracy they had, they thought it was too much then. Remember, in February 17, Fenton was there. When I came out, the first time I really came out publicly with Ryan said CPAC, and they said, Schlapp goes, what are you guys working on? I said, there are 3 things, right? We have the America First national security policy, which is to make sure we have allies, not protectorates. Europe is not a protectorate of the United States. The Middle East, the Saudis and UAE are not a protectorate of the United States. And Japan and South Korea are not protectorates, they're allies. That's America First. Certainly, we know the Chinese Communist Party is an enemy. And certainly we know the mullahs in Tehran are enemies. And certainly we know the KGB in Moscow are not the best guys, right? Not the Russian people, not the Chinese people, not the Persian people, but their leaders. The second was economic nationalism, right? And tariffs and tax cuts. And things that bring high value-added manufacturing jobs back. And the last was the deconstruction administrative state. And back there in CPAC, you got 2,000, braying hyenas, the media, right? They're supposed to be so smart. And they go, the trainer said, what the hell is he talking about? The administrative what? Deconstruct what? All the audience is up on the chair high-fiving, guys in bib overalls. Get it down. They understand this is deeper than deregulation. This is what's controlled the country, administration after administration. It doesn't go away. Now, the rogue element of that's the deep state. It's not random that Trump chose the 4 horsemen of the deep state apocalypse. Hegseth at defense, right? Gates at justice. You've got Tulsi at the 18 different, intelligence agencies, and then to top it off, RFK to take on the biopharmaceutical industry. This is going to be, Trump's got a plan and he's got a vision. After the last 72 hours, look at the meltdown they're in. They can't comprehend it. CNN on Thursday had in the 25 to 54. Now, that's not a small bracket, but that's where the advertisers pay the most money. 25 to 54 in prime time, they hit 61,000 viewers. 60. They have not had a number that low since Bill Clinton's first term. And by the way, Anderson Cooper makes $20 million a year. That all's gone. You can't bellyache anymore about the mainstream media. Nobody watches it, right? What? It's podcasts, it's streaming services, it's Twitter, it's people making clips, and every one of you can drive this. And people are thirsting for this. Let's go back in time. Trump had nothing. He really had no donors in January and February. He had the political class was against him. It was just him. And he had we started things like the precinct strategy for volunteers because people want to get involved. And particularly if you talk to people and you listen to people and you sit there and go, you don't need to write a check. What I need you to do is to put your spirit and your heart into this and your shoulder to the wheel. And guess what? We're going to have victory after victory. You're going to take over the precinct, then you're going to take over the county, then you're going to take over the state party, right? You're going to get invited to the state party convention, and then it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. That's how you build cadres. That's how you take over movement. That's populism. And with populism, we have 2/3 of the countries. We can move beyond race. We have African Americans, Hispanics. Look at the Rio Grande Valley. Been working for years. We swept the entire thing, right? Because those people, more than anybody, want to stop the border invasion. Every narrative you've been told by the mainstream media is a lie. And we know that. But now we've punched through it because you had someone that had the moral courage. Remember, Trump is the American Cincinnatus. Why? In January and February 21, when everybody abandoned him, he knew by making the decision to come back that they were going to try to bankrupt him, that they were going to try to throw him in prison, and eventually they were going to try to assassinate him. That is moral courage coupled with the physical courage we saw in Butler. Who gets shot in the head and stands up and does that and wants the mic and wants to finish the speech? You don't think that inspires young men? That's a gladiator. And that gladiator, they don't know his tax policy, they don't know his policies, and they don't care. They say, I'm following that guy. We have, now think about it, there's 2.5 million civilian employees in the federal government, roughly. There's another, I think, couple of million military service. The contractors, because they've gotten a lot off the balance sheet, right? There's, 18 million contractors. Half of those are service employees. Half of them do some sort of executive, and half of those are really what I would call executives. So you take 4 million of that and 2.5, you get to about 8 or 10 million. And that makes sense because the government now is a $7 trillion, $6.5 trillion entity every year, okay? So it's got a lot of people. We have 4,000. Every president. We have 3,000 that can go in immediately on landing teams and beachhead teams, and on the 20th can be there at the working level and take over. Now, all the cabinets and the undersecretaries, that's 1,000 that we have to go to the Human Resources Department in the Constitution defined as the United States Senate, and the Human Resources Department has to approve that, okay? So they have to be confirmed. Now, you can put people in temporarily, et cetera. We need you and your organizations immediately to give us your best people. We have to have volunteers to go in there. The work is so overwhelming. If we're going to deconstruct this administrative state, if we've talked about it for decades, but we have the opportunity actually to get back to limited government, actually get back to liberty, actually get back to freedom. And those prisoners and their families in Danbury, that's what they want. They've given us a mandate. Working class people and middle class people in this country have given us a unique mandate. to make those changes happen. It's only going to happen. You know personnel is policy. But the work before us, President Trump must have a phalanx of people to support him. And I've told Bob and Tom, I will somehow act as a conduit to Sergio Gore and Taylor Bodowich that are kind of running these programs. But we need the best people to come in and put their shoulder to the wheel. Now, number two is we need your groups. Don't think this is over because we had a stunning victory on Tuesday. Just beginning. The fight, come on, man. Remember, we're fighting for control of the most powerful nation in the history of the earth. Far more powerful than the Roman Empire, far more powerful than the British Empire, the Spanish Empire, the Chinese. This is the most powerful nation on earth. And right now, with artificial intelligence and other technologies coming out, it's going to be even more powerful. They're not going to just sit there and go, oh, this is terrific. Because a bunch of working class people that we refer to as garbage or deplorables, right, came out in Pennsylvania, in Michigan. You know, some Muslim Americans, some Arab Americans voted for him or stayed home in these states, that we're going to toss the keys to you guys. That's not going to happen. You know that. You see it already, where they're trying to pick off certain people. But that's why all the outside groups, when it comes time to take the policies, we have to form a phalanx, and we have to push these through. And it's not going to be 1 year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. I'd love to sit here and tell you it's going to be great. Trump's going to wave a magic wand. It's going to be great. It's not. It's going to be a grind. But think how far we've come. Think how dark the specter was of whether we'd ever come back. And the American people saw it. They saw it in plain sight, and they rendered a verdict. We support you guys. Now we have to deliver. We don't have an option of not delivering. We could be in power with the courts and where the courts stand. We could be in power for 50 years. This is like 1932 if we execute. And it can't be the traditional execution. It has to be all in. President Trump is sending you a signal. You don't put up Hegseth and Tulsi and RFK and Matt Gaetz. You want to do things as usual. He sent a shot across their bow that the political culture of the political class is over, that there's a new day. But that's only going to come. It's only going to come if you're there. And now this gets down to you individually. Think about this for a second. Some economist or somebody a couple years ago did a calculation. It said roughly 100 billion people, 114 billion people have roughly lived on the earth. I think there's 8 billion people right now. There's 340 million that we can even count here in the United States, right? Why are you here? This is every bit as an important a time in American history as 1775 or 1776, right? Or the Civil War, or World War II and the Great Depression. All of us sit there and go, well, if I was in the Revolution, I'd be at Valley Forge, I'd be at Yorktown, right? I'd be in Philadelphia. If it was Civil War, I'd be at Gettysburg. I'd be on Cemetery Ridge. I would volunteer and I would be on Cemetery Ridge. If it was World War II, I'd be at Tarawa, Peleliu, 8th Air Corps. Over Germany or in Normandy, I'd be there. I would be there. I'd be there in London, the Blitz, I would be there. Well, you are here and now, and why did divine providence and divine providence wisdom say that you're here? Tonight, in the darkness and the sweet hour of prayer, you have to ask that question. You have to answer that question. And this has nothing to do with the check you write. I mean the total and full commitment of yourself, your being, your spirit, yourself, your time. If you're committed, you, if you are committed in this audience, committed, and I mean 110%, like Trump when he took the frickin' bullet, and he had every opportunity to crawl off that stage or just say, I can't do this anymore. And he got back up and he won a landslide 4 months later. That commitment, the moral commitment to face everything he faced, 20, 30 years in prison. You do understand if we lost on Tuesday, Jack Smith's 168-page report, of which I am person number one, I'm P1 with the opening quote, that was a superseding indictment. Okay, to send us all to prison for 20 years. 8 that worked with President Trump on the stolen election of 2020. of which I am very proud to have worked on. This is the kind of smash mouth they play, and Trump understands that. But he's one man and one man alone. We need an army, and that army needs leaders, and you're the leaders. You're the cadre of leaders. If you're in 100%, we will win. If you flinch, if you blink, if you back off, it's just too hard, I can't do anymore, we're not going to win. It's that simple. And when I mean in, I mean all in. I carry this. That's a prison card. I'm a federal convict, okay? And I'm damn proud of it. And if you got to understand, we start losing some elections, they're going to send you to prison. They have no, Tina Peters is a gold star mother. That's the equivalent in American culture of a Vestal Virgin, right? In ancient Rome. She's in 9 years in a crappy prison in Colorado. For what? For doing the same thing that Griswold's done over the last couple of weeks. 9 years in prison with a gold star mother. There are people on this right to life are the most humble, poor souls you could ever meet. And holy beyond holy are in for 3, 4, and 5 years for praying in front of an abortion center because the jackboots in the FBI and the DOJ that Matt Gaetz is going to hit with a blowtorch, right? It's this gets very, very fundamental. It's not about the money. It's not about that. It's about you. If you join together to become a cadre, and that cadre takes leaderships, and your groups step up, and we have President Trump's back and all these great people that bring together, because you understand these policies are going to be brutal to get through. The cuts that have to be made to the budget, the debt ceiling, right? The tax cuts, if we can get them back in. We have to deport 11 to 15 million people. You have to do that. It has to be humane, has to be done in a logical way, but they can't stay here. If they stay here, and I'm not talking about before, I'm just talking about the ones that came between January 21 with Biden and January 20th, just those 4 years. Let's take those 11 million to start off with. Everybody else, we'll figure that out later. But they have to go. It has to be humane, and it has to be in conjunction with these countries. Think of that work. You don't think that's going to be a firestorm? The firestorms we have in finance, the firestorms we have on debt, the firestorms we have on budgets. And it can't be the same thing. Oh, we got to pass the Sierra because the media, nobody wants to shut the government. The government has to be shut down until it gets finances and done. And by the way, we will step up and sell that to the American people because the American people want it. They understand that's where the inflation's embedded. The more you have the deficits, the more you have to refinance in short term. It's embedded because they can read the commissary sheet at Danbury Federal Prison. It's your commitment. Trump's committed. He's all in. He actually put himself up there with his own life, his business, his family, prison time, to be assassinated. The Tina Peters, so many people, the Mike Flynn's, look at everybody they try to throw in prison or did throw in prison. Peter Navarro, they thought they'd break me in prison. Prison empowered me. Nancy Pelosi's not going to break me, and Nancy Pelosi will never get us to back down. And look at her, she's a shattered woman right now because of the fifth. They don't even want her around. That's because of what you did in this great populist nationalist revolt. So thank you. And make sure that you do the interior work tonight because it's your commitment. And if you're committed, if this audience is committed, we're going to make it and we're going to win. Victory is going to get victory. As Napoleon said to the marshals of France, when you set out to take Vienna, take Vienna.